Coming up on Mountain News at 6, one person is dead and 2 others hurt after a crash in Pike County. And with the winter season inching closer, we hear from a health expert about dealing with respiratory illnesses like strep throat.
And highs today were in the 50s. The warming trend will continue throughout the weekend, but then it's going to take a nosedive. Details in a few minutes.
Dedicated to Eastern and Southern Kentucky, this is WYMT Mountain News at 6.
A collision in Pike County brought Pikeville's police and fire departments to the intersection near the airport yesterday. WYMT's Buddy Forbes has the latest on the deadly crash.
An early morning crash in Pike County brought first responders to a busy intersection Thursday morning.
We received a call initially of a 2-vehicle injury collision on a US 23 down around Walters Toyota. While we were en route to that, we received a second call stating that there was actually 3 vehicles involved.
Pikeville Police Lieutenant Chad Branham says the preliminary investigation indicates the driver of a blue car ran a red light on US 23 near Walters Toyota in Pikeville.
There was a work truck turning left onto Kelsey Friend Boulevard, and as it turned left there, it struck the blue passenger car, causing it to go into the US 23 northbound lanes, which was then struck in the side by a Jeep.
The car's passenger, 40-year-old Jessica Hopkins, was pronounced dead on the scene, and 2 other people were taken to Pikeville Medical Center by the Pikeville Fire Department.
We were keeping up to date on the other 2 injured parties and hoping for a speedy recovery for them.
Officers believe the weather was likely a factor in the crash, but the investigation is still ongoing.
It was a rainy, wet, dark morning. I always think that those play a factor in a lot of collisions because not only does it make the roadway slick, but it decreases visibility.
Branham urges drivers to devote more time and attention to travel as the seasons change.
We've all got used to, driving speed limit or even a little over, and we haven't had to deal with wet roadways. Well, now that the roadways we're seeing a lot more rain, it's getting wet, it gets darker earlier. You need to give yourself more space in between vehicles, you need to decrease your speed, and you need to be more vigilant.
Driving home the importance of driving home. In Pikeville, Buddy Forbes, WYMT Mountain News.
Branham says an increase in crashes also means an increase in traffic changes and congestion, hoping those who find themselves driving by a crash site or caught up in the traffic will be patient with first responders working at the scene. A Whitley County man was sentenced to 18 years in prison for his role in a machete domestic attack. Daryl Earls was indicted by a grand jury for first-degree assault in 2022. The incident happened when Earls reportedly assaulted 20-year-old Taylor Lowe. Earls has to serve at least 85% of his term before being considered eligible for parole. A Johnson County man was sentenced to 10 years in prison for distributing meth. Gary Warwick was sentenced after he was convicted for conspiracy to distribute 50 or more grams of meth and possession with intent to distribute 50 grams or more of meth. During a trial, evidence was presented that he was involved in 2 controlled purchases of meth by law enforcement. In 2022, police executed a search warrant at Warwick's home, finding more than 130 grams of meth. A Harlan County man was sentenced to 15 years in prison for conspiracy to distribute 500 grams or more of meth. According to his plea agreement, Stephen Williams was the point man for drugs being brought in from Georgia to Harlan and other counties in Kentucky. The incidents reportedly happened between December 2021 and August 2022. A co-conspirator arranged for Williams to travel to Georgia and return with several kilos of the drugs for distribution in Kentucky. In Floyd County, 2 people are facing charges after police found drugs where children had been playing inside a home. Deputies were conducting a welfare check at a home in Langley on Wednesday. Deputies later found meth, fentanyl, and drug paraphernalia mixed in with children's toys. They also found that Dustin Hoover had marijuana in his pockets. He and Christina Blankenship face wanton endangerment and multiple drug charges.
All right, welcome to the weekend, and we're seeing a little bit of a stray shower or 2 being picked up on live pinpoint Doppler radar. We'll go ahead and pinpoint a couple of places. First of all, over towards portions of Martin County, near the Inez area, seeing some rain at the 6 o'clock hour. And we'll go ahead and pinpoint over towards Pike County, towards Pikeville, seeing some rain as well. Same story north of Hindman. Hazard had a little bit of a renegade shower push through, and then everybody west of in the western part of the WYMT viewing area is staying dry, but cloudy skies right now is the big contender. Numbers for today played out like this. Made it into the 40s and 50s, low 50s from Prestonsburg down to Monticello. Somerset made it to 54. Harlan was one of the warm spots, 56 degrees. Actually, it was the warm spot on the map. 10 cooler in Clintwood. Grundy made it to 50. Right now, Grundy is sitting at 49. Harlan's at 54. We're in the upper 40s from Hazard to Jackson, and then Somerset, even Monticello, seeing temperatures in the mid 50s. So when you wake up in the morning, temperatures in the upper 30s and low 40s will greet you across the majority of the viewing area. Mid 40s will be the rule from Prestonsburg to Pikeville. Now, coming up in the first alert forecast, we're going to talk about a warm up, then we're going to talk about cooler temperatures and some precipitation, and we'll talk about that in a few minutes. Steve.
All right, Eric, thank you. Crews in Rockcastle County worked to put out an early morning fire. It happened just after 3 this morning at a building on Paul Street in Mount Vernon. Crews say the building collapsed. Several agencies were on hand to help put it out. No injuries were reported. There were some shakeups in the Kentucky Senate Majority Caucus, but an Eastern Kentucky native retained his position as Senate President. Senator Robert Stivers was elected Senate President once again. With this election, the Clay County native is now the longest-serving Senate President in Kentucky history. He represents the 25th District, which includes Clay, Jackson, Knox, McCreary, Owsley, and Whitley counties. The Harlan County Judge Executive has been chosen the new president of the Kentucky Association of Counties. Dan Mosley took the oath of office yesterday during the organization's 50th annual conference in Louisville. Prior to being picked for this role, Mosley was also a member of the Kentucky Association of Counties Insurance Agency Board. The statewide organization represents county elected officials. The CDC is warning about an uptick in bacteria that can cause walking pneumonia in children. Here in Kentucky, the UK Pediatric Infectious Disease Clinic says they have seen more cases of walking pneumonia than usual, particularly in school-aged children. But despite the increase in cases, health officials say it's not a huge cause for concern. They say most cases typically resolve on their own, and those that do not are not difficult to treat.
Most cases would either be self-limited in that they would resolve on their own, like a viral cold, and those that don't are easily treated with oral antibiotics that can be prescribed by anyone's primary care physician.
Dr. McTeague says prevention methods rely mostly on those who are sick. He says people should stay home from school or work if they have symptoms. Colder temperatures in the air can lead to increased illnesses like COVID-19, flu, and strep throat. WYMT's Chandler Wilcox talked to a doctor about how strep can spread and what community members can do to avoid getting it.
Strep throat symptoms can go beyond the itchy feeling inside your neck.
Fever, headache, in young kids, like stomach aches, another common symptom you'll see with it, some vomiting, but just really bad sore throat, not just like the little tickle that bothers you in the morning.
Dr. Burke says strep throat is common in eastern Kentucky in similar levels to other areas.
It's just whenever it's bad, you feel like everyone's got it around you and just kind of think everyone has it at that point.
The infection may not spread as easily as other sicknesses like COVID-19 and flu.
You know, with strep itself, you don't typically get like the cough and sneeze that makes it easier to get to other people.
But it can still be transmitted quickly.
You know, whatever you're touching, whatever you've got your mouth on, people share food, or if they're just touching the same things, handling food products.
When you do have it, Burke says the infection could go away, but there could be some consequences associated with not getting it treated.
The main risk is something called rheumatic fever, where the disease can actually get into like the bloodstream and cause issues with the heart.
Burke says while strep is more common in kids, they see it infect people in all age groups. In Hazard, Chandler Wilcox, WYMT Mountain News.
Centers for Disease Control guidelines say those who test positive should wait 12 to 24 hours after taking antibiotics before returning to work or school. A Richmond nonprofit animal rescue says they need help after one of their foster dogs was unexpectedly shot in Estill County. The Positive Change Matters Most Animal Rescue is now nursing the dog back to health. A volunteer with the nonprofit rescue, Diane Atchison, says even though they do not know how or who shot the pup, they are going to do everything they can to rehabilitate their three-legged companion.
You can see in our world today that our pets are so much more than pets. They truly are our family members.
With thousands of dollars in medical expenses and upcoming rehab, PUP and the Positive Change team is asking for help, not only financially, but for a special someone to give the dog a forever home. From Amazon wish list to simply donating and spreading the word, Atchison believes that community support could change the pup's life. More than $4.8 million has been approved by the Kentucky Agricultural Development Board for projects throughout the state. Here's a couple places from our area that benefited from that announcement. Animal House Veterinary Clinic in Laurel County was approved for up to $60,000 to purchase a truck. And in Letcher County, Mountain Animal Clinic LLC was approved for more than $17,000 for an ultrasound machine, among other things.
All right, weather headlines for tonight. We'll see a dry weekend in the forecast. Shower chances will pick up next week. And Thursday's tumbling temperatures. We'll talk about all three of these things coming up in the First Alert forecast in a few minutes.
Plus, friends and family say their final goodbyes to a former educator in Perry County.